Mackinac Island,
Yep.
Gary, there's been a debate going on up there, as you know, with the ferry situation. And faced with the threat now of being put out of business by the city of Mackinac Island, Shepler's Mackinac Island Ferry has filed an antitrust lawsuit with the U.S. District Court in the Western District of Michigan.
Yeah.
Edmond Koester is with us right now of Coleman, Yovanovich, and Koester in Naples, Florida, involved in the case. Good morning. Thanks for being available.
Thank you.
Can you characterize the entire situation for us? We have talked a number of times with Chris Shepler on the air about the situation, but tell us from your perspective, what is going on in the Straits of Mackinac?
Well, the real issue is there's 3 competitive ferry lines, and it ought to continue that way. One of the ferry lines is owned by Wynn, and Wynn has made the decision, as James Wynn, that he would like to have a monopoly, and he approached the city of Mackinac Island to have the city of Mackinac Island revoke the franchises of the other lines so Arnold would be the monopoly. And the city of Mackinac Island, in press releases and at city council meetings, have talked about the fact that they're considering this monopoly and want to go with the monopoly approach. Our lawsuit against the city of Mackinac Island is predicated on the fact that the city of Mackinac Island doesn't have the right to create a monopoly and deny the franchises of the other ferry lines. They are a chartered city under Michigan law. They have a very limited charter. That charter does not give them the right to grant monopolies. They also have ordinances in place that say they have to grant non-exclusive franchises on an objective basis. They can't be arbitrary and capricious. They can't favor one person over another. And so it's wholly inappropriate. The real problem for the Sheplers is it's a third-generation business. They have many millions of dollars invested in it. They have a line of credit. They've got money they've borrowed from the bank to pay for their boats and pay for their upkeep. They employ 150 people. They're a big presence in Mackinac City. And if the Mackinac Island is successful in doing what it's doing and win and having this monopoly go through, lots of jobs will be lost, an entire business will be lost, and everybody's experience riding the Shepler ferry boat and the fast boats to the island will all be something of a history, and that's not acceptable to the Sheplers, and that's why we filed the lawsuit in district court asking the federal court to enjoin the Wynn's conduct and enjoin and grant an injunction stopping the island from getting rid of competitive ferry boat service and to stop them from ending the Shepler's family business.
What does the city of Mackinac Island stand to gain by allowing a monopoly?
One of the issues that has come up is that Wynn has offered to sell Mackinac Island docks owned by the Arnold Line and some property owned by the Arnold Line, and then in exchange lease that property back from Mackinac Island, in exchange getting a monopoly, thereby knowing it doesn't have competition, it can afford to make these lease payments, and then at the end of the day, Mackinac Island presumes it would end up owning this property for free.
So Mackinac Island essentially would be in the ferry business, in a manner of speaking. They would get a cut of the action?
I don't know they would get a direct cut of the action. I think they're looking at it like they would end up with free property and free docks if they granted the Arnold Line a monopoly.
And if it's as clear-cut, well, I'll ask you this when we get back from the commercial, but if it's as clear-cut as you say, that what would make Mackinac Island think that they could get away with doing this if all of the statutes and all of the regulations are in place, as you say? We'll find out from Edmond Koester. It's a battle in the Straits of Mackinac for the first time in a long time on the Great Lakes. We have a virtual war between 3 ferry lines and the city of Mackinac, and we'll find out where we go next. At 18 minutes after the hour, Michael Patrick Shields heard all across Michigan, including Petoskey and the Straits of Mackinac and Traverse City and Sheboygan and Mackinac Island itself. Back in a flash. Gubernatorial candidate Rick Snyder will be with us in just a moment. Just want to finish up here with Edmond Koester, the attorney involved in the lawsuit there for Shepler's Mackinac Island Ferry, an antitrust lawsuit against the city of Mackinac Island because they want to create, or are thinking about at least creating, a monopoly on the island that would get rid of the Star Line and get rid of Shepler's, and only Arnold Transit would be the only ferry running. And I asked you, when you laid out your case so clearly a few minutes ago, what makes Mackinac Island think they can get away with that kind of monopoly? And how do you answer that question?
Arrogance. Absolute arrogance. And if you think about it, if they were successful in stopping a temporary injunction and putting Sheplers out of business, imagine how difficult it would be for the Sheplers to finance years of litigation to get a final judgment. Some of the cases we've researched for municipalities have done this before, have gone all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. That takes years and a lot of money. So it's arrogance.
So the next step then, it sounds like in the meantime, is that it likely will be business as usual next spring?
That's our expectation and hope. We're asking the federal court to grant an injunction stopping any creation of the monopoly and enjoining Mackinac Island from stopping the Sheplers from continuing to do business. And hopefully the court will grant that injunction, and then we will address everything at trial.
Is there a sort of a homeland security issue with going from 3 ferry lines to only 1 ferry line?
It doesn't make a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. If you think about this, just not a homeland security standpoint in terms of having competition, but imagine if Mackinac Island said, oh, it could only be the Arnold line. Imagine if Mackinac City said it could only be Sheplers. And imagine if St. Ignace said it could only be Starline. Under that theory, it would be illegal for any one ferry boat to go to any one other city.
Right, because obviously they have to have a place to dock in the cities.
Correct.
Wow. The phrase that comes to my mind when I hear all this is, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. I mean, are all 3 ferries profitable and making money, if you know?
I don't know for sure that the Arnold transit line was in fact profitable. I believe the other 2 lines were profitable. But competition is a good thing, and if people want to drive or ride in faster boats that are better maintained and they like better service, they ought to be able to choose the boat they want to go on.
Are the prices of the ferries reasonable? In other words, the conventional wisdom would also lead us to believe that if it were a monopoly, the price would go up because you could set the price at anything you want. Don't the 3 ferry lines keep the pricing in check? Because if one were to be less expensive, it's like having 2 gas stations across the street, isn't it?
Correct. That's certainly our position, is that the prices are better with competition, and not just the prices, but the quality is better. People have faster boats to get on, better maintained boats, better service. If you go to a monopoly, then you're at the behest of the monopolist. He has no reason to give you better service, no reason to have faster, cleaner boats, no reason to have more return and delivery times.
All right, well, let's keep in touch, and we'll keep in touch with Chris Shepler and everybody else involved. Obviously, we're a nonpartisan show, so if the other side wants to come on and state their case, we'll do that. But you've laid it out very clearly for us, and we appreciate it this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.